Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover podcast for a very special edition, one of the most special possible editions. This is the first day of the NCAA Tournament, 2021 March Madness NCAA Tournament. We missed 2020. We had a year without a Santa Claus, and we woke up today and our Christmas tree was filled with presents and filled with games to bet to the brim. It is going to be a good time today. I'm going to go a little longer than I usually go. Hopefully you guys have some questions. Please leave them in the comments, or if you have any picks for me, or upsets, or Final Four picks, or national champion picks, underdogs, whatever it may be. Leave them in the comments so I can pull them up and we can go through them and talk about it. So how I'm going to do this today, folks, I'm going to go through my slate of picks, go through my games, and then I'm going to go through the games that I didn't talk about and hit on my picks, explain why I couldn't pick a side or a total, and explain where I would lean if I were to bet. I'll also be explaining how much I have on each game in terms of unit size. So we're going to get started. Please go follow at The Painted Lines on Twitter. Please subscribe to The Painted Lines on YouTube and Twitch. I want you guys to go follow at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter and at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. The Painted Lines is now sponsored by XL Media. So there will be more to come on info regarding that and some deals for you guys. So keep it locked to the Painted Lines on Twitter and keep it locked to my Twitter and at Tough Cover Pod, and you'll be up to date. And if you are keeping it locked to there, you know about the bracket challenge for the Painted Lines. We came up with it, me and Dylan, for the Daily Dose and for Tough Cover Pod, and we're doing it with the whole Painted Lines community, all the hosts, all the writers, all the viewers. So please join the bracket, see how you do, and see how you shape up against us. Also, please go check out me, Dylan Davis, and Matt McGinty's Selection Sunday watch party from Sunday, where we break down this bracket in a lot greater depth than I will get to today. Check out the Daily Dose that I did yesterday and the day before with Dylan on TPL before this. And a little breakdown tomorrow. I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be going on at 8 a.m. to give my Saturday picks. Yesterday, I gave out my full bracket, so you know who I'm picking to win each game. But as you guys know, the spread is a little different. So we're almost ready to get started here. Let's do a quick fit check before we get into the matchups. Rocking with the Carolina Tar Heels. Love Carolina today. We'll get into that in much greater detail. Behind me, got the Purdue Boilermakers. They're possibly finishing a parlay for me, hopefully today. So I will be throwing that on later if I need to for good luck. And then next to it, I have three important words. Trust the process. Today's going to be a very important day for trusting the process. Today's going to be, if you start 0-2, you just got to start firing away. You can't let a bad start get to you on a day like today, because today is a war. There's going to be 10 to 20 battles, but today is a war. You just got to make it through and make it to the end of the day up money. And the only way to do that, winners. So let's get to winners. Let's talk about Friday, March 19th, and let's talk some March Madness picks. I'm going to start it off. I'm going to do this in a time-sensitive order. Let's pull up this comment from Dylan Wilkerson. Love the Florida Marlins hat. Hell yeah, I had to rep for Florida. He was kicking off the NCAA tournament at 12:15. I have a Gators hat somewhere. I don't know where it is, so I went with the Marlins. So at 12:15, I have a Florida in a pick'em for one unit. Florida has a team with just much more fight, talents, and experience than Virginia Tech, and are better coached, I believe. I believe in Gators coach Mike White. I've always been a fan. The Gators are a bad matchup for the Hokies because it could take away what Virginia Tech does best, shoot the three. Virginia Tech shoots a ton of threes from the outside, and Florida defends the three just as well as anybody else in the SEC. Florida has the advantage everywhere in this matchup except for turnovers. So Virginia Tech can force a lot of turnovers and cause havoc. That could be the way this bet loses, but Virginia Tech has not been special at forcing turnovers, so it's going to be a bend, don't break situation. But Florida, the reason I'm going with them, they have the two best players in this matchup with Trey Mann and Castleton. So I like Florida to win here and to move on to the second round and to cover a pick'em spread, so win. Moving on to 4:30, big gap there in games between 12:15 and 4:30 for picks for me. But at 4:30, I've got Oregon State team total over 61.5 for 1 unit. Oregon State shot 29 of 66 from beyond the arc in the Pac-12 tournament, almost shooting 50%. The Beavers beat UCLA, Oregon, and Colorado in that tournament to bring their Q1 and Q2 record, Quadrant 1 and Quadrant 2 record, which is given to teams based on where they finish. Quadrant 1 are the very good teams. Quadrant 2 sometimes can be the lower tournament teams or a fringe tournament team. So against Q1 and Q2 teams, they went 7-9, which is better than you'd expect for how they did for the rest of the season. They have a great offensive free throw rate and have a top 40 free throw shooting percentage. So they get to the line a lot and they shoot it well when they get there. The Beavers are getting hot offensively at the right time. Oregon State has scored 67 plus in 6 straight games. Now I know Tennessee, they're a good defense. They want to slow the game down. Tennessee has given up 66 plus in 3 of the last 4. And those games have been against tournament type teams. So I do think Tennessee can be vulnerable when they get into these close games. And as I always say, close games breed overs, even when it's a team total. But Tennessee's also missing John Fulkerson, who caught an elbow from Omar Payne in the Florida game. And he's a big defensive piece in that. He's a big defensive cog in that wheel. So I could 100% see their defense taking a bigger hit without Fulkerson than I could see with their offense, because Springer and Johnson should be able to carry the load. I think Tennessee-Oregon State's going to be a very close matchup, and I think that pushes the Oregon State team total over 61.5. Moving on to the next matchup at 6:25, I've got over 139.5 on Oklahoma State Liberty for 2 units. Before I get to the reason I like the over for Oklahoma State purposes, let's talk about Liberty. Liberty is not a cakewalk. The Flames can bomb threes and shoot teams out of the gym because it takes 3-pointers on 47.4% of its field goal attempts and hits them at a 39% clip. They rank 10th in the country in 3-point shooting with that 39% clip. The over is 4-2 in games that Liberty is a dog. Not a big sample size there, but still positive. The over is 17-9-2 for Oklahoma State and 9-3 in their last 12. Oklahoma State plays an extremely fast tempo and pace, and I expect them to force Liberty, who plays a slower pace, to play to their tempo. Cade's teammates have stepped up recently big time, making the Cowboys a more dangerous team, which I've talked about ad nauseum. After scoring about 9.5 points per game on 7 field goal attempts through January, sophomore Avery Anderson has grown into a good secondary scorer, notching 14 points per game on more than 10 field goal attempts nightly, hoping that this one stays close within a couple points, and that will push it over the top. But I like it either way, over 139.5 for 2 units in Oklahoma State Liberty. Now we get to my bet of the night, my best bet, my play of the day, the North Carolina Tar Heels. I got it at a pick'em earlier this week. The Tar Heels won 3 of their last 4 games, losing a close 69-66 battle to Florida State in the ACC tournament. Wisconsin sputtered at the end of the regular season, losing 5 of its last 6 games. UNC is 45th in tempo to Wisconsin's 326th. I just feel like North Carolina is going to force them to play to their tempo, and if they don't, they're just going to dominate the offensive board so much that it doesn't matter. UNC is number 1 in the country in offensive rebound percentage. Wisconsin is 288th. UNC is going to have such an advantage on the glass. Garrison Brooks, Armando Bacot, and Day'Ron Sharp are going to eat against Wisconsin and Brad Davis and Nate Rovers. UNC is 8-3 in their last 11 against the spread, as opposed to Wisconsin, who is 3-6-1 against the spread in their last 10. Love Carolina here for pretty much every reason. Dylan Wilkerson, love Liberty here. Yeah, I think Liberty is not a cakewalk. They're a legitimate threat to Oklahoma State, and I actually think this is a tougher matchup than whoever wins that Tennessee matchup would be for Oklahoma State. But I still think Oklahoma State gets by. I think they go to the Final Four because I think that they have Cade Cunningham. So it really is that simple. I think Cade Cunningham's good enough to will that to happen. At 7:10, I have UNC team total over 69.5 for 1 unit. Before UNC's last game, they scored 70 plus in 8 straight before that. So UNC is usually trying to win games in the 70s or 80s. Their 3-point shooting was really lackluster to start the year, but got a lot better throughout the year. And like I said, with the offensive rebounding numbers, even if they're not banging threes at a 35% clip, if that's at a 32% clip, even below average, they're still going to be dominating the offensive glass and putting it back up, getting to the foul line an absolute ton. So I absolutely love this matchup for North Carolina. Before Wisconsin's last game, they gave up 70 plus in 4 straight games before that. I expect UNC to dominate the glass and dominate the paint. So I think that's going to be the deciding factor of this game in UNC Wisconsin. So I have UNC money line for 2 units and UNC team total over 69.5 for 1 unit. Let's pull up my buddy Shane's comment. Good morning. Good morning, Shane. Can't wait to get back on to the NFL draft wave. I wanted to do an NFL draft pod this week, but if I would have done it, all these basketball numbers would have just started leaking out of my brain. So let's move on to the next game here. At 9:20, I have Rutgers money line for 1.5 units. 2 ugly offensive teams. This is going to be one of the uglier offensive games of basketball you can ever watch at a high school, college, or pro level. Maybe I'm completely off here, but it's going to be very, very ugly. These are 2 good defensive teams. Rutgers turns it over so much less and runs a much faster tempo than Clemson. While still not fast, it is still a faster tempo. Clemson ranks 335th in offensive free throw rate. They basically just do not get to the line. It's not a point of emphasis in their offense. So that is something that helps Rutgers big time here. Rutgers goes to the line a ton. They just stink there. So I don't know what's better or worse there, but at least they're getting to the line. The Scarlet Knights go through their dynamic duo of Ron Harper Jr. and Jacob Young offensively. They average a combined 30 points per game. Going with Rutgers because I have more faith in their scoring to show up than I do with the Clemson Tigers. So I have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights money line against the Clemson Tigers for 1.5 units. At 9:57, a bet I really like here. This was going to be my best bet if I didn't like UNC so much due to the rebounding numbers. Winthrop plus 6.5 and money line versus Villanova. 1 unit on plus 6.5, 1 unit on money line. I'm a Villanova fan. V's up. I hate to say this, but I just think this is the worst possible matchup as a 12 seed. Winthrop has the 11th fastest tempo and are also 11th in both offensive and defensive rebounding percentage and 23rd in forcing turnovers. That's a lot of good numbers. Like, I know that they're playing in a bad conference. They're 23-1 for a reason. That's a lot of things that make you think, and a lot of things that can punish Villanova a little bit, especially with Gillespie. They could force a lot of turnovers. We aren't a big team. They could have a lot of rebounds to be had in the paint, especially offensively. So I think it's a really, really tough matchup for Villanova. When you play fast, rebound, and force turnovers, it makes sense that you're 23-1. The Eagles of Winthrop ranked 23rd in the nation in points per game. It sucks that Villanova is playing an Eagles team here, but I think that the Eagles will take down the Philly school, Villanova. Chandler Baldwin is a constant triple-double threat from center. He averages about 14, 7, and 7. And he had a triple-double, I believe, in their conference tournament. So I do think that Winthrop is the right pick here in their bracket, and they're also a great pick, plus 6.5. Plus 6.5 shocked me. I think this should be like a 1-point line. So I like Winthrop an absolute ton. I could see myself increasing those units if the day goes positively. Let's bring up Paul LaCour's comment. Love it. Winthrop, easy dub. I agree. I just don't get the line. I think Winthrop is a legitimate scare for Villanova. Let me go through my money line parlay of the day, which is 3-1 still. At 12:45, 3 o'clock, 7:25 money line parlay. The first part of that parlay is Arkansas money line. The second part is first half Ohio State money line, and the third part is Purdue money line. That comes out to minus 110. I put 2 units on that. Arkansas needs to get my day started right by beating Colgate for a Marauder reason. I really need Arkansas to beat Colgate because I don't want my champion or one of my champions to go out on the first hour of the tournament. So I think that they take care of business, and then we get to Ohio State, who has been excellent in building first half leads. Or Roberts really bad on defense. I expect Ohio State to come out dominant from 3 and getting up to an early lead, even if they blow it later on in the game. Which, if those two hit, it would give me a minus 110 on Purdue money line against a North Texas team that absolutely can't score. I have no worries about Purdue advancing today. So I like Arkansas money line, first half Ohio State money line, Purdue money line for a minus 110 2-unit parlay. And then my futures before we go through some of the games that I haven't talked about yet. The future tickets that I'm already holding, just to update you guys on what I'll be rooting for. I have tickets on Purdue plus 110, Arkansas plus 115, Oklahoma State plus 110, all to make the Sweet 16. So I'm betting on all 3 of those teams to make the Sweet 16. Number 4 seed Purdue in the South region. Number 3 seed Arkansas in the South region. And number 4 seed Oklahoma State in the Midwest region. I need them all. They're not a parlay. I have them individually, but I need at least one of them to go to the Sweet 16. I have an Arkansas bet to go to the Final Four. I don't have the figures, but I believe it was a crazy value that I got during the regular season. I have plus 180 on a 4 seed to make the Final Four. So that is Purdue, Oklahoma State, Virginia, Florida State. I think the 4 seeds are massively underrated. So I think that Oklahoma State, I obviously have them in the Final Four, so that would work out. Purdue, I have them in the Elite Eight. Virginia, I have them in the Sweet 16. Florida State, I have them in the Elite Eight. So I have all 4 seeds advancing fairly far. And I want to get the exact line on my national championship future that I placed earlier this year with the Purdue Boilermakers. I had Purdue to win the national championship. I believe I had it at a crazy value. Let's make sure that we get it. I had Purdue. This is great radio, but let's bring up a comment while I'm looking it up. Speaking of that Arkansas and Colgate, I love the under 161. That's a lot of points, and I know these guys can score the rock, but it's March, baby. Shooting strokes isn't like Sander at the Swamp. Sander hasn't shot a basketball in since the Obama administration. But Purdue, I have Purdue plus 6,000, so I have Purdue 60-1 to win the national championship, because why not? I think that they have 2 great bigs. Sasha Stefanovic and Jaden Ivey could give them just enough to get over the top. I literally could see Purdue winning the national championship, but plus 6,000 was just too much to pass up on. But the under 161, generally with totals that are that high, I just stay away in total. I find it hard to go either way on it. Hear me out on Oral Roberts, 80 points per game against OSU Sports defense. Yeah, Ohio State scores like 87 points per game against the worst defense in Oral Roberts. So I do think that Oral Roberts is a little dangerous. For sure, I could see them hanging around, and I could definitely see them covering the full game spread. But I think Ohio State will take care of business, at least in the first half. I just have first half money line anyway for that parlay. Can't say it's not worth a look at plus 900 and plus 16.5 is a lock. If I were to do money line with one of those 15 seed teams, I would just look for a bet that would be all of the 15 seeds, because I know that they had that for the 16 seed. If there was a bet like I get all the 15 seeds for, I don't know, plus 600, plus 700, I might do that. I would think about it, just because I think Grand Canyon's dangerous, Iona's dangerous, or Roberts can score. And Cleveland State, I don't think they're very dangerous, but I think Houston stinks. So I think all 15 seeds are a little dangerous, and all the 2 seeds are a little vulnerable. But so that would be an interesting bet to look into. But let's talk about some of the games that I haven't touched on, because I don't have a bet on said games. Drexel, Illinois. Illinois is a 22.5 point favorite. The over/under is 143.5. I don't touch over/unders in 116 or 215 matchups, because I have no faith that they're going to stay close. And I also don't want to touch an under, because I think Illinois could score 100 points. So I'm not even going to really talk about the 116 over/unders or 215 over/unders. But Illinois is a 22.5 point favorite. Sounds about right. Utah State, Texas Tech. Texas Tech's a 4 point favorite. The over/under is 131. Sounds about right. Texas Tech's probably going to win, and 131's right around the right number. Hartford Baylor, 25.5 point favorite for Baylor. I actually think that they might cover that, but I'm not betting on a team to win by 26 in the tournament. Cleveland State versus Houston. Houston's minus 20. I think Houston probably covers that as well, but I think they stink, so I'm not betting on that. Syracuse at San Diego State. San Diego State's a 3 point favorite, and the over/under is 138.5. I think that Syracuse is being picked by a lot of people based on name and reputation alone. And I think San Diego State's the far better defense and the far better basketball team. I like San Diego State to win here. I don't know if they cover a 3 point spread, because I do think San Diego State wants to play the slower game and a low scoring game. So they could win a really, really close one, even if they have it handled most of the game. And then last but not least, Morehead State versus West Virginia. West Virginia is a 13 point favorite, over under 137.5. I actually think that over could be interesting, but I don't have any faith in Morehead State to keep it close enough to make that over worth taking. And yeah, Oregon State was 10-18 on the over. That's why that makes sense. West Virginia was 18-9 on the season on the over. Maybe look at the West Virginia team total, but yeah, I would lean over there, but I wouldn't take it. And yeah, West Virginia will probably cover. Hartford over Baylor is my favorite 16-1 seed. For what it's worth, yeah. Let me look. I mean, yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. But I think Hartford stinks. I watched them against UMass Lowell. I don't think they were anything special, but I would agree that they were the best 16 seed against the most vulnerable 1 seed. Well, Michigan's the most vulnerable 1 seed for sure. I know you love Michigan, Dylan, but they're without their second best player. But I'm not going to take Texas Southern because they did not even look good yesterday. And then talking about some of the games I already talked about, but a side that I might not have, Winthrop Villanova. So in terms of the total, yeah, both teams have been right around 500. Seems like it's about right on that total, 143. It's went up from 139.5, so that has went up a good amount. So maybe if you want to touch on that under. Virginia Tech, Florida, the over-under is 135. That sounds about right to me, too. I hate to be I made like 20 picks for you guys, but I hate to be the guy that's saying they all sound about right, but guess what? Las Vegas does a pretty good job. They know what they're doing sometimes. Yeah, 11-9-1, 10-12-1. These are not, a lot of these teams are just not over or under teams. They're teams that play to the pace of their opponents. So makes it hard to predict some types of pace in these games. Let's check out Colgate, Arkansas. For my man Joe Ciccoletti, let's check out the total here. 3 of the last 5 for Colgate have went over. Colgate's 8-7, Arkansas's 14-12-1. Both slightly profitable on the over, but 161 does seem really high to me. Yeah, it makes sense, Joe. Let's check out the first half under. The first half under is 77. I think that I would rather do that. I think I would rather bet first half under 77 than full game under 161.5. I don't bet full game unders because of fouling and such. So I would rather go first half under 77, or I'd rather go Colgate team total under 76.5 maybe. No, because they score a lot, but it's a lot of points. I would probably go first half if I had to take an under in that game. Oral Roberts, Ohio State. Let's check out the total in this one. Last 2 games went over for Oral. 3 of the last 4 went over for Ohio State. 16-7 on the over/under for Oral Roberts. 16-12-2 for Ohio State. 157. Yeah, it's a really high number. It makes sense. It should be that high. Georgia Tech, Loyola. I actually do have a bet in this game. It's Georgia Tech over 60.5. I placed it on Monday. I don't believe in it, so I'm not putting it out there on my card. So I do think that Loyola probably wins now with Moses Wright out for Georgia Tech. He has been their best player all year and was the ACC Player of the Year. So I do have Georgia Tech team total over 60.5, but I have no belief that will hit anymore. I talked about Oregon State. I talked about liking the over, especially for the team total for the Oregon State Beavers. But if I had a gun to my head, make a pick here, it'd be Oregon State plus 8.5. I think they keep it close. All those offensive numbers I've read, how good they've been shooting it from 3. Could be due for some regression, but I also think that they could have turned a corner. The coach seems to have them playing the right type of basketball, so I like the over, and I would lean Oregon State plus 8.5, although I do think Tennessee wins and advances. Liberty, Oklahoma State, I already said that I like the over, and I already said that I understand where Dylan's coming from with plus 7, so that gives away where I'm at on that game. Wisconsin, UNC, I've talked about both sides. Purdue, North Texas, Purdue -7, I would take it, but I have the money line over under 126. I almost want to say under, but that's such a low number, I can't do it. Rutgers, Clemson was my last game of the day. Rutgers, 2-point favorite. I ended up getting them as a pick 'em earlier in the week over under 125.5. Another game I would go under, but it's just too low. So that really wraps up my picks for the night. Let me read off my official board. Florida pick 'em over Virginia Tech for 1 unit. A money line 3-way parlay. Arkansas money line, first half Ohio State money line, Purdue money line for -110 for 2 units. Oregon State team total over 61.5 for 1 unit against Tennessee. Over 139.5 for 2 units at Liberty, Oklahoma State. UNC money line for 1.5 units against Wisconsin. UNC team total over 69.5 for 1 unit against Wisconsin. Rutgers money line versus Clemson for 1.5 units. Winthrop plus 6.5 versus Villanova for 1 unit. Winthrop plus 250 on the money line for 1 unit versus Villanova. And then I'm not giving these out officially yet because I'm waiting to see the line movement. But moving to the NBA, I know that we're here to talk about college basketball, and I'm not going to talk too long about it. But the Detroit Pistons at plus 2.5 against the Houston Rockets, who have lost 18 straight games, is crazy. I know the Pistons are bad. The Rockets are even worse. So, and they're on similar rests. I don't get this line. I think the Pistons should be favored. So I'm probably going to end up taking the Pistons plus 2.5 at 8 o'clock, maybe for 2 units. And then Portland plus 3.5 against the Dallas Mavericks at 10 o'clock. I think that Vegas has been just off on Portland all year. I don't think they value Portland whatsoever, and I think that they're wrong. I think Portland's a top 4, top 5 team in the West, based on the fact that they're 3 games better than the Mavs. I think they should be favored in a home game here, in which Dallas has more injury concerns than Portland does. So I like Portland plus 3.5, and I like Detroit plus 2.5, but I haven't bet either game yet. Taking off today was the best decision of my life. I completely agree. Taking off today was fantastic. So everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. I think that there will be a watch party at some point today. I'll be hopping back on here with my man Dives maybe, or whoever wants to hop on and talk some March Madness and watch 4 games at one time or whatever we choose to do. So I do think I'll be back on here today to talk to you guys again. But for now, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us all week. It's been one of my favorite weeks. One of my favorite March Madness weeks of all time. I've had a great time breaking it down for you guys. I've had a great time interacting with you guys on Twitter or on here on the comments, and on the comments on my videos and on whatever. I've enjoyed going back and forth with you guys. There's nothing like everyone debating their best part of the bracket or their favorite part of the bracket. It's the best time of year. Today's my favorite sports day of the calendar. I shouldn't say that. The NFL draft, the NBA draft, and today are my 3 favorite sports days of the calendar, and I absolutely can't get enough. So it's going to be an absolute blast. Hopefully we don't get killed today. Hopefully we have a good day so we can move on to tomorrow and do this again tomorrow morning. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. Enjoy the best day of the year.